Juma was broke, invisible and tired of pretending, until one lie got him invited into a millionaire's life. But when the real heir goes missing, and the girlfriend returns with secrets, Juma learns that stealing a life is easy. Surviving the lie? That's the real price. Dar es Salaam buzzed with its usual symphony of honking horns, Swahili chatter, and the scent of grilled mishkaki from roadside vendors. Juma Mbele weaved through the city's alleys like he belonged, though he never truly did. He wore second-hand Italian loafers, shined daily. His trousers were always pressed, shirt collars stiff, a makeshift disguise of wealth and confidence. But beneath it all, Juma was broke, restless, and tired of watching life pass him by. He lived with his younger sister Asha in a cramped two-room flat above a motorbike repair shop. She worked at a clinic. He made ends meet however he could, running errands, playing the piano at weddings, pretending to be someone he wasn't. What Juma lacked in money, he made up for in charm, mimicry, and lies, delivered with a disarming smile. His big break came at a charity gala he snuck into, held at the Serena Hotel. Wearing a borrowed suit and a stranger's name on the RSVP list, he mingled effortlessly among Tanzania's elite. That's where he met Baba Mwinyi, who mistook him for a graduate of the London School of Economics. "You must be brilliant to have gone there," the old man said, impressed. "Remind me, what was your major again?" "International finance," Juma answered, barely missing a beat. That lie became his ticket. Baba Mwinyi, tired of funding his son's reckless lifestyle in Lamu, saw an opportunity. "You seem sensible," he said. "Would you be willing to go speak to Sefu for me? Get him to come back home. Maybe he'll listen to a peer more than his own father." Juma nodded, heart thudding. Sefu Mwinyi. The name was legendary, charming, rich, stylish, and wildly independent. Juma had seen pictures of him in glossy magazines, lounging on boats or laughing at rooftop parties. Now he was being asked to go to Lamu, meet him, and maybe, just maybe, step into that glittering world. That night, back in his flat, Juma told Asha about the offer. She frowned. "Why do you look like this means more than just a trip, Juma?" He said nothing, but deep down, something had clicked. He wasn't going to Lamu just to bring Sefu back. He was going to Lamu to become him. Juma stepped off the ferry into Lamu town with a dusty leather bag and a heart full of ambition. The island air was thick with salt, spice, and the scent of old wood. Narrow streets coiled like secrets between centuries-old stone buildings. Donkeys plodded past lazy cats. Tourists took selfies near carved Swahili doors. But Juma wasn't here for any of that. He was here for Sefu Mwinyi. The Mwinyi villa sat high on a hill, a whitewashed mansion with arched verandas and columns that whispered old money. It overlooked the Indian Ocean, the kind of place where time didn't rush, only basked. Juma rehearsed what he'd say. "Your father sent me. He's worried. You should return to Dar." But none of it felt real, because all Juma wanted was to meet the man behind the myth. When the villa's wooden door swung open, it wasn't a servant or a guard. It was Sefu, taller than expected. Bronze skin, hair pushed back like he didn't care. He wore a linen shirt unbuttoned to the chest and had a smile that said, "I've never been told no." "You must be the finance genius my father sent," Sefu said, grinning. "Come in, let's ruin his expectations together." The two sat beneath the shade of a baobab tree in the courtyard, sipping cold hibiscus tea. Nima, Sefu's girlfriend, joined them, elegant, poised, but eyes sharp as glass. She studied Juma like he was a chess piece out of place. "You're not like Sefu's usual friends," she said after a while. "I'm not," Juma replied, "but maybe that's what makes me interesting." In the days that followed, Juma sank deeper into their world. Boat rides, sunset drinks, jazz on old vinyl. Sefu taught him to sail. Nima tested him with questions he dodged like a dancer. Juma studied Sefu's voice, his walk, the tilt of his laugh. He took mental notes of everything, every password, every lie, every secret glance between Seifu and the world. He told himself he was still here to convince Seifu to return to Dar. But every time he looked at Seifu's life, he felt the hunger grow. A hunger not to watch, but to have. The days in Lamu blurred into luxury. Juma, once a shadow trailing the lives of others, now basked in a world where the air smelled like jasmine and time melted in the sun. Seifu took him everywhere: Dao parties, Swahili poetry readings, midnight swims. And Juma, ever the chameleon, adapted with ease. He began dressing in Seifu's clothes, at first with permission, then without asking. "You wear my linen better than I do," Seifu joked, tossing him a pair of imported sunglasses. But it wasn't just the clothes. It was the mannerisms. The lilt of Seifu's Swahili-English mix, the arrogance in his stride, the way he rolled his sleeves. Juma mirrored it all, until even the house staff occasionally called him Bwana. One afternoon, as they lounged on the terrace sipping madafu, Nima watched them from behind her gold-rimmed shades. "You two are starting to talk alike," she said. Seifu laughed. "Maybe I'm rubbing off on him." Juma turned to her. "Or maybe I was always like this, and now I can finally breathe." She tilted her head. "Or maybe you're pretending so hard, you've forgotten where you end and he begins." Juma laughed it off, but the words stuck. That night, Juma wandered through the villa alone. He paused by the piano in the main hall and began to play, soft jazz, then shifted into a melody he'd heard Seifu hum. He didn't notice Nima watching from the stairwell, arms folded, face unreadable. Later, in Seifu's room, Juma saw the passport lying carelessly on the dresser. He picked it up, studied the picture, the name, Seifu Mwinyi. The life contained in those pages, flights to Paris, Cape Town, Dubai, felt like sacred scripture. Juma held the passport to his chest. What would it feel like to have a name like that? The next morning, he tried a bold move. He introduced himself to a tourist at the dock as Seifu Mwinyi. She giggled and asked him to show her around. He did. No one questioned it, not even himself. Each time he wore Seifu's name, it fit a little tighter, a little better, and somewhere deep inside, a crack began to form, a dangerous one. Juma's impersonations were no longer rehearsals. They were performances lived in real time. In Lamu, where the rich passed like ghosts and the locals dared not ask questions, slipping into Seifu Mwinyi's identity was too easy, too intoxicating. But Nima noticed. She wasn't fooled by the small things, how Juma now poured his tea like Seifu, how he laughed without sincerity, how his compliments were perfectly timed yet void of warmth. She caught him once, staring too long at Seifu's reflection in the mirror, studying it like an actor perfecting his role. "You're obsessed with him," she said one evening as they walked along the beach. Juma glanced at her. "Is it obsession if you admire someone's life? Want better for yourself?" "It is," she replied coolly, "when admiration becomes imitation." Nima's mistrust grew, but Seifu remained blind. He liked the attention, the admiration, the way Juma looked at him like he was a god. He needed the ego boost. His father's criticisms, his girlfriend's growing distance, the boredom of island life. All of it made Seifu cling to Juma's devotion like a child clinging to applause. Until one afternoon changed everything. Seifu and Juma had gone sailing, as they often did. A private cove, just the two of them, the sky blazing with golden light. They shared wine and stories. Seifu, a little tipsy, said something that stuck a dagger in Juma's chest. "You know," he said, swirling his drink, "you're lucky to have met me. You'd be nobody without this." He gestured at the boat, the sun, the life. Something snapped in Juma. Just a flicker. "I could be you," he whispered. Seifu laughed. "You try to be me. That's different." There was a silence, long, tense. Juma stared out at the water, jaw clenched. That night, Juma returned to the villa alone. He stood in Seifu's room, turned on the light, and walked to the mirror. He tried the words again. "My name is Seifu Mwinyi." They sounded smoother now, like silk. Then came the sound of the front door opening. Nima calling out, "Where's Seifu?" Juma didn't answer, because for a moment, standing in that mirror, he wasn't sure he cared. Seifu disappeared the next morning. At least, that's how Juma later described it. They had gone sailing again, just the two of them. The sky was overcast, the waves choppier than usual, the winds impatient. They argued before setting off. Seifu, flippant and drunk on palm wine, mocked Juma's borrowed accent and second-hand charm. "You're like a mirror that's forgotten it's not the face," Seifu said with a bitter laugh. Juma tightened his grip on the tiller. "And you're a face that's forgotten it's not immortal." The boat veered into deeper waters. They kept drinking, their words sharper now, cutting closer to bone. Then it happened. A struggle. Sudden, ugly. A shove, or maybe a slip. Juma's memory blurred at the edges. One moment, Seifu was yelling. The next, he was in the water. Juma didn't throw him a rope. He didn't shout for help. He just stared, heart thudding, as the ocean swallowed Seifu whole. The silence that followed was too loud. When Juma returned to shore alone, he was soaked, shaking, and claimed Seifu had fallen overboard during a drunken mishap. He hit his head. He didn't come up. The story traveled fast. The police came. Inspector Barasa arrived from the mainland, his voice calm, eyes calculating. The Mwinyi family was informed. Baba Mwinyi sent a team but didn't come himself. Too ashamed, too angry. Nima didn't cry. She just stared at Juma with a coldness he hadn't seen before. "You were the last person with him," she said. "I tried to save him," Juma replied, voice even. "I tried." Barasa nodded, but didn't look convinced. "The ocean doesn't always keep secrets," he murmured. With no body recovered, Seifu was declared missing, presumed dead. Memorials were held. The villa was emptied. Nima left Lamu abruptly, offering no goodbyes. And Juma? Juma stayed. He moved into the villa, quietly, without permission. He wore Seifu's watch now, used his name more freely, answered emails as him, called the tailor in Nairobi to request more linen shirts. Nobody questioned it. The line between Juma and Seifu had vanished. And in the stillness of the empty villa, Juma began to believe it had always been his life to claim. When Juma stepped off the flight in Dar es Salaam, dressed in tailored white linen and dark shades, he didn't look like the boy who had once waited tables at weddings or ran errands for tips. Now, he arrived as Seifu Mwinyi, the man who'd been presumed dead, but had simply needed time to clear his head. That was the story he gave Baba Mwinyi. They met in the family's Kilimani compound, surrounded by guards and marble. The old man studied him like a puzzle missing key pieces. "You lost weight," Baba Mwinyi said. Juma smiled. "The island does that to you." "And Nima?" "Gone, left before me. We argued. She's probably still grieving." Baba nodded slowly. He didn't ask too many questions. Perhaps he didn't want to know the answers. Instead, he handed Juma the keys to the family's BMW and said, "Start attending the meetings at Mwinyi Holdings. I won't be around forever." Juma left the compound feeling reborn. The car purred beneath him as he sped through the city. Everything looked different from behind the wheel of the elite. People moved out of his way. Valets bowed. Doors opened before he even reached them. He checked into a luxury penthouse apartment, used Seifu's credit cards, and filled the space with imported furniture and jazz records. He hosted quiet gatherings, dropped names at the golf club, slipped into circles Seifu once held effortlessly. And for a time, it worked. People whispered about how Seifu had changed, become more disciplined, less reckless, more focused. Maybe losing himself for a while helped, someone said at a cocktail party. But not everyone was convinced. One afternoon, as Juma reviewed documents at the Mwinyi Holdings office, a secretary knocked softly. "There's a woman here to see you. Says she's an old friend." Juma frowned. Name? She wouldn't give it. He stood, walked into the waiting area, and froze. It was Nima, dressed in black, eyes unreadable. She walked up to him slowly. "You can play the part," she whispered, "but you'll never be him." He smiled, heart racing. "Aren't you tired of grieving someone who doesn't exist anymore?" Nima leaned in, her voice ice. "I'm not here to grieve. I'm here to watch you drown in the lie you built." Juma's hands trembled as he poured himself a drink that night. Nima's return had shaken something in him, something he had buried in the depths with Seifu's body. Her presence was a reminder that ghosts don't stay silent forever. She didn't expose him immediately, and that unnerved him more. She came by the penthouse uninvited, offering tight smiles and long silences. She spoke to his colleagues, joined board meetings, and reinserted herself into the Mwinyi family business. Everyone assumed she and Seifu were reconciling. Only Juma knew it was a slow game of chess. Then came Inspector Barasa. He arrived in Dar unannounced. Juma received the call while leaving the bank. "Inspector Barasa is waiting in the lobby," the doorman said casually. Juma's breath caught. He found the inspector seated calmly, sipping coffee like a man with all the time in the world. "I was in town for another case," Barasa said. "Thought I'd pay my respects to the man who came back from the dead." Juma forced a smile. "I'm sure you still have questions." Barasa leaned in. "Just one. If Seifu never died, where was he hiding all that time? No passport, no transactions, no sightings?" Juma's fingers twitched. "The island has its ways of swallowing time. You should visit." Barasa chuckled. "Maybe I will. Maybe I'll also look into a few inconsistencies in Seifu's bank records, like a piano teacher from Dodoma who suddenly made 5 million shillings in wire transfers before vanishing." Juma stiffened. "People disappear all the time, Inspector." Barasa's eyes gleamed. "Yes, but they don't all come back wearing someone else's skin." That night, Juma couldn't sleep. He stood before the mirror, tracing Seifu's name on his chest with his finger like a brand. Nima was tightening her grip. Barasa was circling, and yet he couldn't let go. He had tasted this life, the soft bed sheets, the power in his voice when he entered a room, the way people listened now. He couldn't go back to being Juma. He wouldn't. He picked up his phone, called a fixer in Mombasa. "Handle something for me," he said, discreetly. Because if ghosts were going to haunt him, he'd need to start burying the living too. The fixer's name was Matu. Scarred hands, quiet voice, and eyes like fog. He didn't ask why Juma needed him, only nodded and said, "Tell me who's making your world unclean." Juma hesitated for a breath before whispering, "Inspector Barasa." Matu made no promises. He's not small prey. You don't kill a lion with a mosquito bite. "I don't want him dead," Juma said quickly. "I just want him distracted, discredited, something to keep him off me." "Understood," Matu replied. "But you must know, men like Barasa, even when silent, leave behind echoes." That week, whispers about Barasa began spreading in Dar. A file was leaked, linking him to an unresolved corruption case from Mtwara. A video surfaced of him at a party with known smugglers, old, but damning in the right context. The media buzzed. Barasa was recalled for questioning. Juma watched it unfold on the news, heart thudding with a mix of fear and triumph. The heat around him cooled, temporarily, but Nima still watched. One evening, she arrived at the penthouse unannounced, holding a bottle of wine. To new beginnings, she said. Juma poured 2 glasses, tense. You're full of surprises lately. She smiled. And you're full of masks. They drank, danced. She moved through the apartment like she had memorized it. Her perfume filled the air, something rich, expensive, unforgettable. She stopped at the piano. You remember this? She asked, running a finger over the keys. He nodded. Of course. But he flinched when she played a melody. The same one Juma had played alone in the Lamu villa the night after Sefu disappeared. She had been watching even then. Her eyes met his. I know what you did, Juma. He didn't deny it. He didn't nod. He simply looked at her, chest rising and falling. You won't tell anyone, he said. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. No, I won't, she said. Not yet. She placed her wine glass down. I want something first. Juma narrowed his eyes. What? Control. She leaned closer. Half of everything Sefu left behind, and your loyalty. The silence between them cracked like thunder. Nima hadn't come to destroy Juma. She had come to own him. Juma barely slept after Nima's visit. Her ultimatum echoed in his mind like a funeral drum. Half of everything. His freedom for her silence. His throne for her leash. But what choice did he have? Nima had always been sharp, but now she was dangerous, steering this game like a seasoned puppeteer. And worst of all, she wasn't bluffing. She had kept quiet for months. If she was speaking now, it was because she was sure he couldn't survive the alternative. The next morning, she sent a single message. Meet me at the Oyster Bay Hotel. Noon. Bring the papers. Juma arrived sharp, dressed like Sefu would. Pressed navy blazer, designer shades, clean-shaven. He found her by the pool, sipping passion fruit juice in a white dress, her posture regal. Nice of you to come, she said without looking at him. You already own the silence, Juma replied. Now you want the crown too? She turned to him slowly. I want security. You stole a life. I'm just asking for my share of the loot. They negotiated like strangers, cold, efficient. She wanted her name added to key properties, joint access to 2 of the accounts, her own driver on the Mwenyi payroll. She also wanted a seat on the Mwenyi Holdings board, an impossible ask under normal circumstances. But nothing about their arrangement was normal. And in return, Juma asked, you stay Sefu. You stay clean. I help you keep the lie alive, she said. But if you ever cross me, 1 word to the press and you go from heir to murderer in 24 hours. They signed the agreements in private, 2 copies, 1 for each. That evening, Juma sat alone in the penthouse, holding the pen he'd used to sign away half his stolen kingdom. He poured himself whiskey and turned up the jazz. Then came a knock. He opened the door, expecting the driver. It was Inspector Barasa, looking very much not discredited. Did you miss me? The inspector asked with a slow smile. I have new questions. Juma's throat went dry. I thought they pulled you off the case. Barasa shrugged. They tried. Then he pulled a small notebook from his coat. I was reviewing the timeline of your return. Something doesn't add up. And just like that, the walls began to tremble again. Juma offered Barasa a drink, masking panic behind a polite smirk. The inspector declined. I just want to understand how a man who was dead 3 years ago, Barasa said slowly, suddenly reappeared with polished English, a clean past, and no fingerprints in government databases. Juma leaned back. You're chasing ghosts. Barasa smiled. Maybe, but ghosts don't sign legal property transfers. You did, yesterday, with a woman named Nima. Juma's blood chilled. Barasa opened his notebook. Interesting thing about legal signatures. They confirm identity. And your identity, Juma Mbele, doesn't match the man on those deeds. He dropped a photo on the table. It was from 5 years ago. The real Sefu Mwenyi, smiling, alive. Juma stood slowly. "Where are you going with this?" "I'm not going anywhere," Barasa said. "You are." That's when the second knock came. Nima stepped in, looking radiant in black. Barasa turned to her. "Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Nima." Juma's mouth dropped. "You..." Nima raised a hand. "I kept my word. I helped you sign the papers. I helped you stay clean. But I never said I wouldn't save myself." Barasa handed her a manila envelope. "Your immunity deal and a seat on the Mwinyi Holdings board, as promised." Juma staggered back like he'd been slapped. "You played me." Nima stepped close, whispered in his ear. "You thought you were the only one pretending to be someone else." Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking like a slow applause. Barasa cuffed Juma. "You should have stayed poor." That night, Dar es Salaam glittered outside a barred window. Juma sat on a metal bunk, staring at the skyline. In the corner of the cell, a radio played faint jazz. He closed his eyes and muttered, "I should have just stayed, Juma." Stories connect us to our past, shape our present, and guide our future. African Legends and Stories is more than just storytelling. It is a bridge between yesterday and tomorrow, between tradition and modernity. Subscribe now and be part of this journey. Like, comment, and share to keep these legends alive. This is African Legends and Stories, where the past speaks and the future listens.